There are two things in the music business: before Thriller and after Thriller.
But you wanna be bad, just beat it, beat it. No one wants to beat it. Sure, I'm funky, strong, sharp factor. It doesn't matter who's.
The first time I heard Michael Jackson's Thriller, he was pop, he was R&B, he was gospel, he was rock. It was everything that I loved.
And bring all of these elements together of dance and choreography and theatrical moments and it feeling, you know, like a musical damn near.
The magic of it, each track was better than the next. It was in your brain and everybody knew it.
For the 14th consecutive week, the best-selling album in the country is Michael Jackson's Thriller.
If Thriller came out today, it would still be the greatest album ever made. It's the ultimate blueprint to modern pop music.
I love the way that record is sequenced, right? Want to be starting some. The title says it. He want to be starting some shit right now. He's like, I'm about to start some shit in the industry right now. I'm about to blow everybody up.
This was literally the pinnacle of everything that began with him, Thriller, Beat It, and Billie Jean. To this day, when Thriller comes on, I mean, there's not a Halloween that doesn't happen where you don't hear that song. But then you have Human Nature, PYT, and then you have Lady in My Life.
It became the biggest selling album ever. Michael Jackson, always keep one in the cab.
This is history. I want to say it's Black culture, but it's for everyone.
Thriller is the biggest selling album of all time. Thriller is a cultural phenomenon that's lasted 4 decades and seems determined to continue going forward.
What takes your breath away is he had the ambition to become the biggest star in the world, and he did it. The fact that he had that dream, I mean, that goal, that's what's the remarkable story.
Ever since we were kids, we've always wanted to dance or keep the time to the music. And that's part of us. It's like something we have to have, and it's in us. Because I don't know what I would do if there wasn't music.
Joe Jackson's role in his children's careers would give people a lot to talk about. The former steelworker had somehow gotten his family out of Indiana, groomed for stardom.
Now here are 5 brothers from Gary, Indiana, ranging in age from 10 to 18. The Jackson 5.
Oh, baby, give me one more chance. Won't you please let me back in your heart? Oh, darling, I was blind to let you go, baby. But now since I see
this poor man's life has been dissected completely. Is there anything anybody hasn't asked you by now?
Enjoy yourself for me. Enjoy yourself for me. Better enjoy yourself.
Now tell me, what do you think is the success of the Jacksons, yourself and the Jacksons?
I would say probably togetherness.
I can't think about Michael without thinking about the Jackson 5 and Motown and all of that, so it takes me a little further back. It takes me to Off the Wall, which is one of my favorite records.
Welcome to WBLS once again, Michael Jackson.
Thank you very much.
The name of the album is
Off the Wall.
Are You? We'll be back with Michael right after this.
I was not the biggest Jackson 5 fan. I was a serious pop music critic. And I said, well, it's cute what they're doing.
Baby, baby.
You know, James Brown, Jackie Wilson, that's really nice. You know, it wasn't what I was interested in. And then Off the Wall comes out, and I was caught up in the excitement of learning more about Michael and his world. So I interviewed him separately. You interview the brothers all together, him separately. You know, he's nervous. He doesn't like to do interviews. He's sad. He's lonely. He starts talking about his life. He was so hurt around 14, 15, 16 when his face changed. He got bigger. I mean, his face had broken out. He was so sad. People didn't care about him anymore. You know, adults would come into a party at some house and they would be looking all around, where's Michael? And they'd be walking right past him, you know? And he got the feeling, we don't care about you, we want that little kid.
He was dead set on his focus to be, Michael Jackson's solo artist.
And he had to. He knew that it was time. He knew that he was excited to have it all be on his own terms, not attached to anybody. And he knew that he was even going to soar from that.
Well, Off the Wall was an enormous success. It put Michael on the map as a solo artist. People forget that before Off the Wall, there was a period between Motown and the Destiny album where people thought maybe the career of the Jackson 5 was over, that they were yesterday's news, forgotten boy band, really. So Off the Wall reestablished Michael as someone to watch.
Off the Wall was just this incredible record. And we knew that Mike was coming back with something special because he didn't win everything that he wanted during the Grammys, and he only won one award, which was the R&B award at that. He thought he was gonna sweep. He thought for sure, I got a pop smash here. So when that didn't happen, he left there with a vengeance, just determined to do better next time.
He was determined to change the way he was perceived. And there were a lot of writings he did to himself, affirmations.
I look in the mirror and I would say over and over to myself, I'd take a deep breath, put my feet together, raise myself erect, strong like a hero, a warrior, and I'd say, biggest selling album of all time, greatest selling, over and over to my mind, and look in my eyes and I'd mean it. I'd say biggest selling album of all times. And I wouldn't accept anything unless it was exactly what I wanted. My attitude was I want the biggest selling album of all times, to break records, to do phenomenal work. I came in angry.
Michael was writing. He was writing, he was fuming. He was still upset about this idea that he would be denied, major awards for Off the Wall.
I just remember all of the process of when they were doing it and the excitement while they were recording, just hearing tales, as they're coming in and out of the studio with it.
Westlake was a really great studio because you felt the facility had this warmth and this friendliness and this casual, put you at ease feeling. There was just the most incredible vibe where you could just be creatively free to take the music wherever you wanted.
This is hallowed ground. I was in here a lot because Quincy made a lot of records in here. Off the Wall was made in here, certainly Thriller. Quincy worked in here a lot.
Quincy influenced everything we've ever done in our lives, whether you can hear it or not.
Exactly. Depth of understanding of music. That's what makes Quincy Quincy. He's done big band, he's done small band, he's done pop, he's done rock, he's done everything. So just understanding all those different genres and how to fuse them all together is what gives you all these wonderful applications that you get on a Michael Jackson record.
And that sound was, Bruce Swedien had a lot to do with how that overall sound was, the echo and the reverbs and the way he would place things. And they were excited. As we were making the record, you could feel the excitement in the room, knowing that we were doing something that was going to be special.
Wow, I don't even know where to begin. I just remember coming here to this studio, which was like a second home, and coming in listening to the demos that Rod Temperton would provide, and we would just start to carve musically, and work our way into the details of the demos.
Rod Temperton, this guy was brilliant. I mean, he was deep. I love Rod Temperton. He wrote incredible songs, and he was part of Quincy's, tight team.
We did a lot of funky sounds on Baby Be Mine. Quincy was just he's always looking for something different. So we were brought in because I think Quincy knew about MTV, and he was looking for a cinematic thing because Quincy came from film. When Michael would want, he knew things that he would want for sounds, and he would put it on a record player and play it, and then I'd say, well, let me go get that other synth. So it would be in the truck, parked in the parking lot of Westlake, or it would be in the hallway. We had amble cases lining up the hall, and we just basically took over the place. And we were creating sounds and using synthesizers in kind of a big way and replacing orchestra.
So one of the things that I noticed about Michael's development as a songwriter, I saw him getting more rhythmically and harmonically advanced, taking steps forward and forward and forward.
His talent was not only developing as a singer, he developed as an entertainer.
Yes.
It's funny, you guys should have picked this room, because I'm walking through here, and I just, I'm just seeing, I can almost channel him, his spirit into this room.
He had us prepared. We were prepared.
No question. And he would come in ready to go. He was the kind of individual that had a awesome work ethic.
The process was quite a adventure, because most people forget that the first single from the album was The Girl Is Mine. Obviously, you had no bigger star in the world than Paul McCartney. And, the pairing of Michael and Paul, what better flag waver to get a project started?
Every night you watch my dreams since I met her from the start. I'm so proud I am the only one who especially her heart. The girl is mine.
Get it, John. Get it, John.
The doggone girl is mine.
So we get the call. It's like Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson. I mean, it just didn't get any bigger than that. So we were kind of like, oh, well, holy shit, what are we going to do? What's this going to be all about? When Paul McCartney walked in the room, there was a palpable change of energy. I'm like, oh my God, that's Paul McCartney.
Saying that you're mine. Rubbing roses and your secrets. It's really just a waste of time because you're mine. Beautiful. Doggone good.
Do that one more time, man. The second verse.
That was a wonderful day for me. It was a day that changed my life. I was in the presence of the greatest, most successful people in the music business. Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, George Martin was there.
Because of its catchy melody, many think The Girl Is Mine was written by Paul McCartney, when in fact, it was composed by Michael Jackson.
Once the music started flowing, it was like, here's two old friends.
Coming out of Off the Wall, the challenge was, is Michael Jackson really a pop star? Or is he just a big R&B artist?
The way it worked was that you were a black artist until you weren't. And you weren't when you got on the pop charts. Michael told me The Girl Is Mine was his sneak attack. He knew he wanted to cross over, and what better way to do it than to have Paul McCartney?
I've heard it all before, Michael. She told me that I'm her forever lover, don't you remember?
Well, after loving me, she said she couldn't love another.
Is that what she said?
Yeah, she said it. You keep dreaming.
I don't believe it.
The girl is mine. No, mine. You're mine.
She's mine.
So that initial session with Michael and Paul happens in April. The actual formal sessions for Thriller didn't start for a couple of months later.
Yeah, Michael did the demos at his home studio. Quincy invited me to go to Michael's house to listen to some demos. What I didn't realize was that we would be given our own private world premiere of Billie Jean Beat It, Wanna Be Starting Something.
Beat it, but you're driving me mad, so beat it, beat it, beat it, beat it. No one wants to beat it, beat it. Show them how funky strong is your fight. It doesn't matter who's wrong or right, just beat it, beat it, beat it, beat it. No one wants to beat it, beat it.
Well, the songwriting process is something that's very difficult to explain because it's very spiritual. It's you're really just in the hands of God, and it's as if it's been written already. That's the real truth. As if it's been written in its entirety before you were born, and you're just really the source through which the songs come. Really, because they just fall right into your lap in its entirety. You don't have to do much thinking about it. And I feel guilty having to put my name sometime on the songs that I do write them. And I compose them, I write them, I do the scoring, I do the lyrics, I do the melodies. But still, it's the work of God.
Starting Something was wild, you know, he had all this.
Wanna Be Starting Something has the frenetic percussion of Off the Wall, which is amazing because it's like you have these incredibly tight drum grooves and these program beats now. I think that's why for me, Wanna Be Starting Something is still my favorite.
I remember just being able to go out and do the demo at Havenhurst, yeah. He had it before we got there, and then he just, you know, shared it with us, and we worked out the parts. Because it's
so rhythmic and all that. So he knew the sound, he knew the rhythm that he wanted to hear and everything. So, like I said, we were quick.
Would you love to get under, stuck in the middle, and it's thunder, hard to get over.
There's a certain approach, you know, you want to take to, you know, to emphasize the feeling. I would say that Quincy helped glue those elements together and make an arc out of the progression of how the song started to the vamp at the end, and made it seamless, you know, including horns, which of course at first thought would be considered too jazzy, but they blended perfectly well in the song later on.
But there's still that. And then at the end, when it goes a cappella to that as a DJ, that is your best friend, because then you start to mix in your next record and blending in whatever the biggest songs you have.
As a matter of fact, I asked him what Mama Say, Mama Sa, Mama Kusa meant. You know, why it was going down. He's, well, it don't mean nothing, just sing it, you know. And
there it is, because that was difficult to do, I'm telling you. He said, I like singing with you all because you sound like me. He always thought our voices blended so well with his.
Wanna Be Starting Something was like, it was like an opportunity to kind of get into his mind. And this idea of like Billie Jean and the fact that he was living kind of in this world where you didn't really know what was real or wasn't.
She told me I was alone in bed, and I began to say, she called my name, then she said hello, all then and done. And I said, gotta go, get a ride. It seems that you don't believe.
My mom had just bought a stereo system and it had lights. the drums kicked in. Then, boom, 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 boom. I mean, what? And I ran down the hallway just to hear closely what was playing, what this record was. And it was Billie Jean, and it was on and popping from there.
It's actually kind of nasty, and you can hear the room mics, and it's dirtier than you think.
You know, you always have that moment where you fall in love with an artist for the first time. Really, truly great, legendary artists, you have that same feeling over and over and over again. Billie Jean was that moment where I fell in love with Michael all over again. When Michael sings it, he puts the funk into it the way he does all the and all the little stuff that he puts in. That gives it the syncopation. And if I just go boom, 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 he's gonna go boom, 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 boom.
She was more like a beauty queen from a movie scene. I said don't mind, but what do you mean? I am the one who would dance on the floor and around. She said I am the one who would dance on the floor and around. She told me her name was Billie Jean, and she caused a scene. Then heavy hair turned with the ice dream.
Everybody loves toxic R&B. Billie Jean's not my lover. She's just a girl who claims that I'm the one. Yeah, that's like, was it his side chick? You know what I'm saying? Was it some chick who, you know, he had an encounter with and got pregnant? Is this real? Or is this some delusional fan who is saying that, you know, they had an encounter that they did or did? All of those things just led you to be more intrigued about an artist, right?
But it was like urgent and R&B. It was crazy. It was an amazing R&B record, and his lyrics, you know, the kid is not my son. I mean, the kid is not my son. That first of all, that we like Bad Boys, so that made us love him some more. And then when I saw the video, I was losing my mind. I lost my voice screaming.
You know, it was about Billie Jean, you know, him stepping on, you know, the pavement, glowing and, you know, making you feel the magic.
Ed storyboarded that he would walk down this street and the paving stones would light up. And I showed him which 11 paving stones we could afford to have light up, and therefore which ones couldn't. And he looked carefully at them, and I said, well, should we rehearse it? And he said, no, let's just do it. And we ran the playback, the music, and the chorus kicked in for Billie Jean, and he began his dance movement down that street, and I'll never forget it. The camera actually steamed up. I could hardly even see him through the eyepiece because it was so exciting to watch.
Michael is doing so much moving that Steve isn't even getting. There are several shots in Billie Jean where he's just being shot from the waist up, and you can just see him doing all kinds of stuff, and it's like, why aren't you getting that? But that's just how new the medium was to capturing dancers. Michael opened the door for that.
And every time they just kept freezing him in those brackets, and every time he walked and they froze him, and every time he said something, I was losing my mind because I loved him so much. But on Billie Jean, we was like, oh, he is super duper duper sexy.
MTV refused to play Billie Jean. They said, well, our network appeals to, you know, white teenagers, and this just really doesn't fit our format.
This is it. Welcome to MTV Music Television. I'm Mark Goodman.
I'm Martha Faye.
I'm Alan Hunter. You'll never look at music the same way again.
Turn it on, leave it on. America, see the music you want to see.
I want my MTV.
Some prominent black musicians are complaining that they are being left out of the video market, specifically the music television cable operation.
It occurred to me, having watched MTV over the last few months, that it's a solid enterprise, and it's got a lot going for it. I'm just floored by the fact that there's so few black artists featured on it. Why is that?
The fact is, quite frankly, we're a rock and roll station.
MTV will deny this till the world ends, that they had nothing against black artists. But they refused to play Michael.
In 1975, I was named president of the CBS Records Group,
and a vice president of CBS Inc. No single record changed the business and my life as powerfully as Michael Jackson's Thriller. I screamed bloody murder when MTV refused to air his videos. They argued that their format, White Rock, excluded Michael's music. I argued they were racist assholes.
So Walter Yetnikoff said, really, okay, if you don't play Michael Jackson, I'm pulling Billy Joel and everybody else that I have off of MTV.
I've never been more forceful or obnoxious. I've also never been as effective. With added pressure from Quincy Jones, they caved in. And in doing so, the MTV color line came crashing down.
One of the most important things about Thriller was the doors that it opened for other artists to have the opportunity to get on the pop charts. Tina Turner, my God, Private Dancer. That's who it was. It was Tina, it was Lionel, it was Whitney, it was Michael, and Prince. Revenues could just be crazy.
Thriller changes the dynamic in the culture. Michael shows the way that this is possible.
Yeah, I grew up during the time that Thriller was released and MTV was just becoming a really big thing. I remember almost more vividly the amazing storytelling through the videos, which is pretty interesting because I think here we are 40 years later and the music in the video is coming to life again for the next generation on TikTok. Michael Jackson's music has been available on TikTok since August 2020. I think there's a real rebirth of the music and the video from these songs on the album, and it is this new generation that's being exposed or engaging with the music. There are about 10 million video creations on TikTok right now that include music from Thriller. There are 17 billion views of those 10 million videos that exist. There are about 2 billion likes on those videos, so people putting a little thumbs up or sharing or doing something to say, I'm excited about this, I'm engaging with this music. Pretty massive numbers. They're hearing it for the first time. They're like, you know, it's the same feeling we maybe had when we watched the MTV video for Thriller or Beat It. They're having that same experience 40 years later, but rather than just watch, they're actually then making something to engage with that music.
I was kind of upset about the news I heard about MTV and how they weren't showing blacks, and that kind of hurt me. So I wanted to do something that was so powerful, so strong, that everybody would have to show it. But I wanted to tell a strong story. The story had to sell itself. And what they so-called videos weren't doing that. They were terrible. They were just a lot of nothing put together just to sell a song. I wanted my things to be powerful. I wanted to stand out from everything else, that when you see it, you run to the set and you're glued to it, watching it. I wanted quality, I wanted excellence, I wanted the best. I wanted to perfect perfection.
One thing that I can always say about Michael is that you felt like there was a sense of culture. And the culture would span all the way from kind of like this Broadway, you know, more theatrical world. And then there was this other element that was cultural, that was almost like gangsters. Look at Beat It and the idea that the people of that era felt like, oh, he's speaking to us and with us, he's rocking with us, he's making music for us, we can dance to his music.
It was an incredible move to decide we're gonna have a rock and roll record on this thing. Beat It was straight up rock and roll.
Michael's idea with Beat It was to distance himself from Off the Wall, from the dance, disco, and Michael wanted to stretch. Creatively, he wanted to stretch.
They wanted a crossover hit across the board. Rock, R&B, pop. They called me to come in with Michael and Quincy to do the da-da-da, da-da-da. They want to go rock and roll, let's do it, you know, so I did it with all you know, all that, doubled it and made it sound huge. And then I played the bass on it as well. I did play bass on that record as well. So I sat with them and made that swing. And when Michael was dancing in the room, I knew I was in the pocket.
When he wrote Beat It, he said, I want the kind of guitar player on here that will attract young white teenage males. Eddie Van Halen.
I said, well, what do you want me to do? And Quincy said, well, I want you to be you. That's you right there. And he pointed to the famous, Strat that he had. And he said, I'm not going to tell you what to play. You go be you.
I mean, Eddie ripped these solos off one after the other.
I remember like hearing the sound coming from Studio A where he was doing the solo. It was so loud. It was just so loud.
Bruce Swedien and Quincy brilliantly edited that solo together.
I mean, I think I probably just loved it because at that moment it was probably everything that I ever loved in one song, you know? I've done way more time Googling Lukather's tone on Beat It than Eddie Van Halen's because it's the tone that drives the whole record. That's the riff. It's the perfect way that like a rock guitar could ever sit over programmed drums and like a funky groove.
I thought his videos were incredible. I mean, first off, the guy can dance. I mean, just being in the room, watching him groove while we're playing.
That short film, you see this whole movie, it's about a big fight that's about to happen, right? Between two rival gangs, right?
He saw value in street culture. He wanted to try to figure out a way on how to incorporate it in, and the beginning of it was Beat It.
The people that you see in that film are a mixture of dancers and street cats. And not only that, that you actually had real gangsters on set. Like real Bloods and Crips and Vatos and all, like for real.
There was such a magic in Michael and his movement.
You had b-boying that was going on in New York. You had popping and locking that was going down over here in California, and strutting and roboting, all that. So the guy that's vibrating in the Beat It short film with the glasses on, his name is Robot Dane. This is the first ever street dance wave of the United States of America.
The most relevant scene at the time, which either was breakdancing, locking, popping, waving, whatever it might have been. He's pushing the envelope forward. He's teaching us some things. He's informing us as artists, but also, too, as performers, he's letting us know that, yo, I want to be the baddest.
As a fan or a critic, you're always looking for breathtaking moments. The time when you say, I've never seen anything like that. I'm probably not going to see anything like that again. The Motown show. That's what I think was the most important step in the whole Thriller process of making him the superstar.
I'll be there.
Bob Jones was vice president of publicity at Motown. He says, we're doing a Motown show. I rented a tuxedo, and I went to the show. People just went crazy.
I was home in front of the TV waiting for him to take us there. First, we didn't know what he was going to do because he was up there with his brothers.
The Jacksons leave, the brothers leave, and Mike stays out there. And in the audience, you could hear just kind of like what's getting ready to happen now. And, Mike goes through the whole, those are some great times. I love the old songs.
Those were good songs. I like those songs a lot, but especially I like the new songs.
And then here comes Billie Jean.
The
that you can see of Billie Jean and the stuff you see going on in the audience, it does not capture what was happening in that crowd. These people were going absolutely berserk. Mike just turned it the fuck out.
People always told me, be careful what you do. Don't go around breaking young girls' hearts. And mother always told me.
I mean, he just laid a bomb on that room.
I was at that show at the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, and he's moving different. He's got his own moves now. He's not so much doing what he learned growing up and he was excited about.
We just was happy to see Michael Jackson perform, period. Nobody seen the moonwalk coming.
He does the moonwalk. That's the breathtaking moment, okay? And after the show, I couldn't believe it. I had to go backstage and ask somebody, was there a special trick floor? How did he do that?
You know, this was the performance that really changed space and time. A few of his dances, we call them timekeepers.
And he created a whole vocabulary of timekeepers, whether it's with his hip or with his little side stomping with the ankle.
That's right.
Or he'll stomp with the foot.
With that, you can sing. You see what I'm saying? And it looks like you're dancing. It's a bit of a trick, right? And you walk over here, and switch the mic, flip the coat, put the hand in the pocket. You can do few things here and there that only you can do if you know your song and your music.
You know, when you see him glide across the floor or pop, it's a special effect. He saw magic in that dance.
Look at that. If you pause each moment, is an iconic silhouette. It's the hat, it's the arms, it's the tapping of the leg, right? The kick.
To see a black man standing on his toes. Seeing that and not being conscious of it has made generations of black, brown, white, whatever color kids feel like anything was possible. It's bigger than I think we think and acknowledge.
After Mike finished, the producer had to get on the microphone and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please, please gather yourselves and take your seats. We have more show to tape. There's much more show coming." And it took a minute for people to get their ties back together and the women to put their wigs back on.
Okay, I have one question for you. Who was the unfortunate artist who had to come on?
I don't remember.
I think that was a moment that he had his breakout moment from the group. That song, Billie Jean, and the way he performed it on that night set the standard of what it was to be a megastar.
The next day after the show, when Fred Astaire called my house, he said, "I saw the show last night. I taped it. I watched it twice this morning." And he said, "You were incredible. You're a hell of a mover, and you really put them on there." Yes, he said. And I said, "God, thank you. It's so wonderful for you to say that because I think you're the best." And that was my real reward because I think he's brilliant.
To a classical dancer, it's about your line, it's about the shapes that you're making, and Michael does that. That to me is very similar to a trained dancer, even though he wasn't trained. He would have been the ideal ballet dancer. The proportions of his body, he was lean and long, and just had like a natural instinct when he moved, but there is such precision and clarity. He was a perfectionist. And that's what dancers are. You know, you don't commit that type of time and sacrifice your body, the injury, all of those things if you don't have the passion for it and the love for it. And all of that sums up Michael as a dancer, as a performer, as an artist.
Michael Jackson didn't invent dancing on film, but his particular synthesis of the Nicholas Brothers on one hand and Bob Fosse, Astaire, popping, locking, moonwalking. No one had ever put those elements together before like that. You can see it all the way through from Billie Jean and Beat It and Thriller all the way through to all of these other artists. Look at MC Hammer. You can't touch this. Then you go forward to like Usher and Justin Timberlake. And then you go farther forward to Justin Bieber, Doja Cat, Bruno Mars.
Michael is emulative. You look at BTS, you can see it.
I'm all in with BTS. I love those guys. Every move they do is all Michael Jackson. Michael created that.
The entire K-pop wave, they've all studied Michael in terms of stage clothes, video clothes, and stagecraft. There's a great video, if you watch BTS, there's a lot of Michael Jackson. You see it in their dancing. So the entire K-pop movement, they're students of the game. You can look at a number of millennial hip-hop artists, Polo G being one of them. 23, 24 years old, from Chicago, yet he's very much entranced with Michael Jackson, and he uses Michael Jackson music and imagery in some of his music.
Smooth criminal, Mike Jack, and I still like to toe the 4-5 like Mike back.
It was just a night I was riding around, I was riding my car, and I was just listening to Michael Jackson interviews. I wasn't listening to music, I was just listening to his interviews. And I just came up with this idea, like maybe I should do this song and this instrumental and just really mess everybody's head up, because I know they wouldn't be expecting that from a young artist.
Tell me, honey, are you okay? Screaming out, no way. Tell me, honey, are you okay?
Because I remember my grandma had this same exact album. My auntie, who was her daughter, she was a big Michael Jackson fan, so she always had us listening to him. So I remember her having this one exactly.
It's pretty wild. It says how powerful the imagery that Michael created was.
On Thriller, his life was evolving, you know, and his vocal approach was different.
There's vocalists and there's stylists. Style wins. When you can hear a person sing and recognize them from the first couple bars, you know you got something special. They have a special tone, a special voice, a special delivery. Now, Michael had all of that. And just the way he loved to dance and he loved to perform, he turned all of that melody that he was so great with into percussive melody.
Well, that's what he did. He would sing drum parts. He would sing bass lines. He would, all with his rhythmic inflections. We call it drums in your mouth.
He would beatbox. He was an amazing beatboxer, but beatbox with melody and sing, you know, not just beatboxing. He would, you know, integrate melody with it, and you can hear it on Beat It, you know, just the way he would attack each syllable.
Beat it, no one wants to beat it. Showing how funky, strong is your fight. It doesn't matter who's wrong or right, just beat it. Beat it.
I think of all of his melodies and his songs, and they're completely percussive. I mean, they're incredibly rhythmically hooky, and, you know, all those songs. And the songs that he wrote have these very aggressive staccato rhythms. I feel like Billie Jean and Wanna Be Starting Something. They're really short and stabby. They're always like, there's a tiny bit of like anger and like contempt in the way that he's singing and writing.
I know I am someone, and let the truth unfurl. No one can hurt you now, because you know it's true. Yes, I believe in me, so you believe in you. Help me sing it. Woo-hoo!
The greatest soul singers are not afraid to feel the music, you know, just do what the music tells them to do.
For all the new cats, all the new school cats that are going on record and ad-libbing, and they say like, I'm sorry, Michael did that first. I'll prove it to you.
So beat it, just beat it. Beat it. Beat it.
Why was he yawning on a record though? It shows the freedom and how comfortable he felt on the studio without worrying about people's judgment or like, yo, what's that? Because you know he was bringing the freaking skills. You knew he was bringing ultra talent and imagination for him to be like, you know what? I feel like yawning right here.
Baby.
I don't know what that one is. I don't know. But I love it. And I'm listening to his ad-libs. He's doing all that. He's doing all this rhythmic stuff.
Michael had such a clear vision of what he wanted. And Quincy, he knows who wanted to work with each other. There's a number of things going on. We had Beat It, drums being done by Jeff Vaccaro at Sunset Sound, Steve Lukather in Studio B at Westlake, Studio A, Quincy and Bruce. Quincy's going back and forth between A and B across the hallway. Then you add the E.T. Storybook album, and then it's just a lot going on.
Quincy had become friends with Steven Spielberg. And I remember one day he and Steven invited Quincy down to the set when he was working on E.T. And E.T. was there, and the guys who were operating it at the time were there. And I think somewhere in the course of it, Steven had said to Quincy, he said, you know, I want to do we should do a record of some sort.
So Quincy, I think, came to Michael and said, Steven wants us to do the E.T. Storybook album, where Michael would narrate the story of E.T., and Michael would write and sing a song for the album.
And Michael was a big fan too, so Quincy said, let's do this. So they started doing it in the midst of doing Thriller.
I've always loved film, and we're talking on the stage of doing Quincy Jones and myself and Steven Spielberg working on a project.
The problem is nobody bothered to call Walter Yetnikoff and clear the rights because the album was going out on Universal MCA's label. I'll never forget, one day I was at a meeting and I get a call. So I get on the phone and Walter says, tell Michael to stop kissing the monster. Walter, what are you talking about? Stop kissing the monster. So if you look at the E.T. Storybook album, Michael's got his arm around E.T. They're like pals, and that's what Walter was talking about. It wasn't just an album, it was a whole box set with posters and picture of Michael with E.T. So Walter filed an injunction against MCA and Universal and made them take the album out of the stores. It was already shipped, it was already a huge hit. They had to pull the album back.
Epic wasn't happy, and they felt it was sort of holding up their record, the Thriller record. Yeah, they sued, you know, you can't have our artists, you know, and Walter was litigious anyway, and so he went in hard, and MCA responded hard, and it was, you know, all hell broke loose.
And he said, John, is he mad at me? I said, what do you think, Walter? You just sued him and Steven Spielberg and Quincy Jones, and you're wondering if he's mad at you? And he goes, what can I do to make it up? And I said, you give him the ownership of his master recordings, Off the Wall, Thriller, and everything to come. He said, done. To get your masters back in the middle of a contract, I don't think had ever happened.
Rod came with his songs, Michael had his songs, and if those worked, they worked. If they didn't, they went looking elsewhere.
Lost my heart on the carousel to a circus girl who left my heart in pieces.
Carousel was a great song, and fortunately or unfortunately, you know, there was only room on the album for one mood like Carousel or Human Nature. And Human Nature was the choice we had to make, you know.
Toto was big at that time.
Toto, who I just adored, we worked together a lot. And they sent over 2 demos, 2 things they thought would be right for Michael. And all of a sudden, at the end, there was all this silence. And I said, why? Why? And I tell you, I get goosebumps just talking about it. And I said, what the hell is that? You know, that's what took Carousel out. I said, this is where I want to go because it's got such a wonderful flavor.
I'll tell you what, tonight I want to do
one of my favorite songs. I touched her shoulder. She likes the way I stare. If they sing, why? Everybody sing! Why does it leave me that way?
The song that always haunts me is Human Nature.
What a beautiful record.
Yeah, it's one of those records that you just say, I wish I would have did that record. And that always, for me, is the test of if I love it or not.
I remember one experience in the studio. Rod Temperton, one of the writers on the album, and he said, Michael, if you only had 3 hits off this album, would you not be happy? I said, I'd be very angry. And they all started laughing. I said, I expect 8 hits off of this album, 9, all of them. I said, that's how I am, I'm sorry. And my attitude was always reaching out for more, never being satisfied. And right at this very moment, I'm on my 5th hit record. 5, Human Nature is number 10. And I've broken a record that has never been done before. 5 hit songs for one album. Always reaching out for more. Striving for excellence.
It's so engaging because the idea was to have something for everyone.
There was a song that I didn't really know too much about that was called Starlight, and it was a disco song that Rod Temperton wrote, so it really evolved from this click here at 118. And so, okay, we lay the click down. And the idea was, let's put a new version down, let's put some tracks down and see where it goes. So we start with this drum beat, 4 on the floor, kind of dance song. And then backbeat, claps on the 4. And then the hi-hat part was like this. 5, 6, 7, 8. And then open hat. There we go. And then the cowbell. There we go. So another thing about Michael and Quincy is they like kind of like a little bit of a feel to the music. So this is straight time, and then we add a little bit of shuffle to it. So it just kind of pushes it a little bit like that. So it's in. And then the bass line ended up being kind of like something I never would have expected, like a little bit of Latin rhythm, like doom 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 bom 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 bom, which sounded like a conga line to me, but. And there was the opening.
Just layering all the parts of Thriller was one of the most fun sessions I've ever done in my life.
At 24, Michael had become more than a master singer, dancer, songwriter. He was a super salesman of his own mystique. Michael's passion for world conquest was singular. He lived, breathed, slept, dreamt, and spoke of nothing but #1 successes. Thriller stayed #1 for months. In the long period of its unprecedented success, however, when it occasionally fell to second place for a week or two, Michael panicked. Hysterical, he'd berate me for failing to pump up the promotion. "I'm pumping, Michael," I'd say. "I promise you I'm pumping." And I was.
After Thriller had sold about 3 or 4 million copies, I got a call about 12 noon. On the phone was the record company saying, "Hey, listen, if you're not busy, we need you to get over here right now." Michael was going to be presented a plaque for the Thriller record. And we were wondering, why were we waiting? In came Jane Fonda.
Jane?
I love Michael and I admire him. He's the only person I know that writes music that you can dream to and dance to and love to and work out to, and I do all of them to him. Come here, Michael.
In retrospect, I know exactly what he was doing. He understood the importance of having a big white star giving him this plaque.
Michael has #1 single on the pop charts, #1 album on the pop charts, #1 single on the R&B charts, #1 album on the R&B charts, and I think that's sort of an historic record.
But I don't think we understood where it was gonna go until the Thriller video came out.
As far as the record company was concerned, the album cycle was done. They were thrilled with whatever it sold, and Michael said, "No, we got more."
Thriller, of all the songs on the album, seems like you can do much more video-wise, no, movie-wise, than any of the songs because of the story and all the visuals and monsters and stuff. And so I came up with an idea of thinking that I really want to change, metamorphosis into some other creature. And I saw American Werewolf in London. I really liked it. And I said, "Who's the director who did it?" And he said, John Landis, John Landis. I said, "Great, that's who we got to get." So I said, "Get in touch with him."
So I get this call, and he says Michael Jackson, and I really thought, little Michael Jackson of the Jackson 5? I mean, I thought he's a kid, you know? And he told me he had a song, Thriller, and he wanted me to make a video, and I said, why? His brother showed him on the bus the tape of American Werewolf, I think to scare him, but he loved American Werewolf in London. And he was obviously fascinated with Rick Baker's work. And so he called me and said, I want to turn into a monster. Will you do it?
And the record label wouldn't pay for it. And we talked. I said, Michael, you shouldn't pay for this. You should pay for it yourself. And he said, Branca, figure it out.
Nobody wanted him to do this. This was entirely his own thing. And everybody else, his people and the record company said, next album. Michael, hello, it's the most successful album of all time. So they thought Thriller was outrageous.
Its budget was $1.2 million. That's at a time when the average music video budget was only $50,000.
So I went back to the office, I thought about it, and I thought up this idea of a making of. Went to MTV and Showtime, and Michael was the biggest thing on the planet, and I said, we'll give you a making of Michael's next video. We need $1.2 million, and they came back and they said yes.
We're trying to bring back the motion picture shorts, which we will do with Thriller. A lot of the videos, I hate to use the word video because I like to think of it as a film, which it is. We're doing a short film. A lot of them are so terrible. And I wanted Thriller and Beat It to be a stimulant for people to make better videos or short films. I really did. Because, I love MTV watching it. I think it's great. But a lot of stuff I see I'm not so crazy about.
He wanted to turn into, at first, a wolf man, like the werewolf in American Werewolf. His desire was to turn into a monster on camera. We had the character turn into a four-legged hound from hell, a beast. And Michael wanted to do that. And I told him, Michael, it would be so difficult for you to dance with four legs, and for the puppeteers. No. So then it was going to be more of a traditional Wolfman character. And Rick Baker did the first design, and it was great, but truly terrifying. And I said, whatever we have him turn into, he's got to be attractive. Scary, but kind of cool and elegant, So his second design, he made him that wear cat, and it's a much more graceful design.
Are you all right?
Michael Jackson was a very slight person, 99 pounds soaking wet. So how do you develop a presence on screen? For Thriller, it was supposed to be a satire of a teenage horror film, so he's in a Letterman's jacket, and then with his red jacket for that theater, I was trying to create a silhouette that was sexy, masculine, impressive, and gave him weight on screen.
So with Michael's fascination with monsters, I said, well, you'll become two monsters. You'll become a werewolf, and then when we decided on dancing zombies, a zombie. Doesn't make sense, but who cares? You know, it's a fantasy. And he really enjoyed the process of the makeup, and he really enjoyed wearing the makeup. Most actors hate it, and he loved it. He's so dynamic, Mike, and he has such power and such charm. As I had seen it, just looking at, you know, can you feel it? And everything I saw, it's like, why isn't he being sexual? I mean, he's a rock star. So one of the first things for me was I wanted a girl to make him sexy and to also to be gaga in love with him. The big eyes, you know. And I saw over 100 actresses and dancers and all kinds of people. And when Ola came in, one, she was desperate to be with Michael Jackson, and she was adorable.
Michael Jackson isn't Michael Jackson as a werewolf. Michael Jackson is another person totally with the mask.
And I like, you know, when he's so shy.
I have something I want to tell you.
The only time I really explained something to him, I said, you know, Michael, I want you to know when you say I'm not like other guys,
I'm not like other guys.
it will get a laugh. And he was clueless. He said, why would this get a laugh? I said, because you're not like other guys. But at least he was prepared because it got a huge laugh. And so he was in on it. You know, I think he would have been terribly upset otherwise.
From the beginning of the film, going to the theater, then you're walking out, and then Michael has that cat and mouse sort of walk with that he's doing with Ola Ray. That's like an ode back to classic musicals, right? The cat and mouse chase, right? You know, the man playing up to the woman and all that.
And it's a dolly shot. And I said, Mike, here's what we're gonna do. As long as Ola could keep the beat, you do those lyrics, you can never be more than this many feet away from her.
The big difference between a costume designer and a fashion designer is, for us, it's all about dramatic context. So where are they going to be? They're going to be in an alley and a movie theater, and what are they doing? They're on a date, and Michael is going to be playful and be seductive. She's dressed in blue, she's cool, she's relaxed, she's in jeans. They did have a leopard print on them, but, you know, tight jeans, little jacket. She could have been cuter. I think to the audience, with what she's wearing and her attitude, she's sending off every good vibe.
And I'll say, okay, well, that was fine. I don't want fine. You're Michael Jackson. So it has to be great. Because if you can't be great, why the fuck do I have Michael Jackson here? So he goes, okay, John. And he did the next take. He was great. You know?
All through the night, I'll save you from the terror on the screen. I'll make you see.
Michael Peters and Michael Jackson came up with the choreography, and it's fascinating choreography because the dancers were allowed more rehearsal than usual. At that point already, Michael had established certain moves. So my first instruction to Michael Peters was spooky, and the second one was, I don't want any Michael move.
And they go into this popping routine, right? This goes back to the whole thing of where Michael Jackson crosses the technique and the street world, right? And he was so inspired by popping and waving and all that, so that he had to put them in the film.
How would a zombie dance? And then looking at it, and it just made a lot of sense to me that they weren't just locking, or they just weren't popping, or they just weren't doing jazz dance. The angles, the lines were all demented and crooked. And I just never seen anything like that before.
On those zombies, those costumes were just made of rags. We call it aging, distressing, and dying. Then, of course, Rick Baker's work was just masterful on everybody.
This is a song about watching a movie. Yo, a blockbuster night.
He made a whole movie. He entertained us. He gave us R&B. He gave us horror. He gave us sci-fi, but he gave it all to us in music. He was just amazing.
After the video came out, it tripled its sales. They sold 6 million of these. This made MTV a powerhouse and then created this whole rock video business. It was extraordinary.
And it's that moment when the audience falls madly in love that the audience creates the icons.
He could write the songs, he could produce them, he could sing them, he could perform like no other, and he also was a fashion icon.
I've seen little tiny kids in red jackets. I've seen old grandpas in red jackets. I've seen girls in red jackets. I've seen everybody wearing that jacket.
It was huge, worldwide. They were buying the leather jackets that they were buying everything. They were buying Michael Jackson posters, calendars.
Looks so much like Michael from head to toe. Put the mic in his hand and he'll steal the show. I love you, Michael Jackson.
Anything with Michael Jackson on it does continue to sell.
I work in a record store, and it still just flies out of the store every week. And we're talking about a record that's a year and a half to almost 2 years old, and people are still freaking out about it.
There have always been fan clubs, Michael's fans more passionate than most. This club calls itself the PYTs.
We love you! We love you, Michael!
And if nothing else, Thriller is always going to be played in the month of October.
Like, there's this big thing in Mexico that happens where, I'm telling you, people fly in for it. They're all in their costumes, and they do the Thriller dance. Thousands of people. And people are still, you know, dancing to this song like it was just done, like the short film just came out yesterday.
Thriller, a long time coming. Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Probably the single biggest video for MTV ever.
After their initial reluctance, MTV became a huge supporter of Michael Jackson, especially the Thriller short film. They heavily promoted the premiere. At some point, it felt like the M in MTV stood for Michael.
And everybody was talking about how they were going to cut school to go home to watch the Thriller video because it was a 12 o'clock world premiere on MTV. And he was acting, he was eating popcorn, and then he turned into a monster.
There's something about music, I think, that triggers so many different emotions in people. So you're tapping into all of that to a larger and larger and larger audience, and it just exponentially grew.
So, the spring of '84. The record's already out, it's already selling, because Michael's now gone from being a pop star to a phenomenon. The Guinness Book of World Records is giving him an award as the biggest selling album of all time.
It's a thriller of a party tonight for Michael Jackson at the Museum of Natural History. That's where Jackson is being honored for his album that's broken all the records.
This was the payoff for the fans tonight. That momentary glimpse of superstar Michael Jackson with his date for the evening, Brooke Shields.
Thriller, with 25 million copies sold, was the best-selling album ever.
Today, we surpassed 25 million copies for Thriller. Michael Jackson, the one artist in the world!
Thriller eclipsed them all. At one point, the damn thing was selling 1 million copies a week.
Michael had become a global obsession.
And just think, you all came to see me. No, I know why you're here, and with good reason. To see one of the most talented, most popular, and most exciting superstars in the music world today, Michael Jackson. Michael, welcome to the White House.
But being with Michael at that moment in time, Thriller is now out on television. And there was Michael Mania, He called me and he said, "Have you ever been to Disney World?" So the park was open and there were people walking around. Well, here's Michael, here's Mickey and me. Suddenly, we look around and there are people as far as you can see in every direction, behind us, in front of us, around us, and they're getting more and more hysterical. Michael, Michael! And you see Mickey Mouse is going like, "Holy shit, we're never getting out of this alive," you know?
You know, Thriller was the biggest album in the world. Michael's the biggest star, and he wanted to go out and tour Thriller. But Joseph, you know, Mr. Jackson had other ideas. He wanted to bring all the family back together. He brought in Don King as the recommended promoter of the tour. And he got the brothers and Mrs. Jackson, Catherine, everybody was all for it. Michael was hesitant, to be honest. He felt like he had done Thriller on his own and he wanted to tour as a solo artist. But he was persuaded to go along with it.
This tour is a bonanza of marketing. So everybody wants to get in on this. And Quaker Oats, you know, they had made a deal. They had a tentative deal with the Jacksons to be the sponsors of this thing. And then Don King says, "Listen, I've already made a deal. I made it with Pepsi."
Michael was not into sponsorship because he said, "This isn't my thing. I don't drink Pepsi. This is all for my family." And Michael did not want to do the Pepsi deal.
You're a whole new generation. You're loving what they do. I put a Pepsi in the motion, and that choice is up to you. Hey, you're the Pepsi generation.
Because he said to me, "Okay, Branca, listen to me. I got to do this because my family wants it, but you have to write two things in the contract. Number one, I'm never holding a Pepsi can. And number two, I can't be on the screen for more than 3 seconds." So it's in the Pepsi contract, no more than 3 seconds and never holding a Pepsi can. So if you ever watch that commercial again, you'll see.
It's interesting because if Don King had not made the deal with Pepsi, Michael's hair wouldn't have gotten burned. I was actually at the Pepsi commercial, and I had an all-access pass. When I arrived at the Shrine Auditorium downtown, Michael and the Jacksons were on stage performing Billie Jean. The audience had been invited, you know, and they were told to scream and the whole thing. They didn't have to be instructed to do that. They were crazy about, you know, seeing the Jacksons and Michael there, and they did a run-through. And after they came off stage, Michael was just in a great mood, and he was having fun, fooling around. And then they called them back out and said, "We're going to do this again." And it went horribly wrong.
Filming the Pepsi commercial, there was a big explosion. And it burned Michael's scalp very severely.
The audience didn't know what was going on. And when they took Michael off stage, I went backstage, and it was just absolute chaos. They put him in a stretcher, you know, an ambulance stretcher, and they took him off stage to a paramedic truck. And Michael Jackson was smart enough to be covered up, but he had his glove out. That was the photograph that went around the world of him with the glitter glove. People were crying, you know, in the audience, and people were running with the ambulance as it was taking him away. It was just an incredible thing. When I got home, it was all over the news.
Jackson was rushed to a hospital last night after suffering 2nd and 3rd-degree burns.
But his doctor said the famous patient was doing well.
He slept several hours last night. He was up watching TV at approximately 1 o'clock. He's comfortable this morning, although he is continuing to have discomfort in the scalp area.
People don't realize he had to go to emergency treatment in a burn center. And he was troubled by the pain from that burn for the rest of his life, which led to pain pills and whatnot to ease the pain.
Because he needed painkillers, he was in pain. life couldn't stop. He had a book full of things that he had to do, you know, a schedule that just could not stop.
The opening of the Victory Tour in Kansas City was a massive event. It's at Arrowhead Stadium. It's a giant football stadium.
I love you, Mike. I love you. I love you so much. This is going to be the best concert of the century, don't you think? Definitely.
I had to ask Michael Jackson to marry me today.
We would do about anything to see Michael Jackson.
You're looking at a sneak preview of what is perhaps the most controversial rock concert tour in history, the Jackson's Victory Tour, opening tonight in Kansas City.
Started something, you got to be started something. I say you wanna be started something, and you got to be started something. But you're hard to get over, too low to get under. You're stuck in the middle, and I'm paying it thunder. You're hard to get over, too low to get under. You're stuck in the middle, and I'm paying it thunder. I took my baby to the doctor with a fever, but nothing she found her. Out into the street, they said she had a breakdown. Someone's always crying down my baby, crying, talking, feeling, crying. You just want to be started something. You got to be.
The Victory Tour sold out in Kansas City. Then it was on to Dallas, Jacksonville, New Jersey, New York, and Knoxville. It's currently scheduled in some 13 cities, with more sites yet to be announced. Preparations are well underway tonight for the Jackson's Victory Tour concert.
The Jacksons' massive stage was beginning to take shape as early as Thursday.
There's not too many places that you can stick a monstrous stage like this. Most of the performances, more than 50 in all, will be in stadiums like the Silverdome.
The shows of the Victory Tour were much more mainstream America, and that was a testament to how big Michael had become and to the penetration of the album.
The irony of Thriller is that there was never a tour solely dedicated to the biggest LP of all time. The Victory Tour was a mix of vintage Jackson family music and hits from Thriller. But it was the Thriller material that turned the crowd out every night.
She just a girl.
Michael has been nominated for 12 1983 Grammy Awards, the highest number in history.
So we went to the 1984 Grammys at the Shrine Auditorium. I didn't get the feeling he was nervous. I actually got the feeling that he was excited. And I don't think I had any idea, even the magnitude of it.
Michael Jackson was nominated for 12 Grammys overall, including Album of the Year and Record of the Year.
The record of the year is Beat It, Michael Jackson.
The album of the year. Here it is.
Thriller!
Best pop vocal performance male, Michael Jackson.
I had a deal with myself if I win one more award, which is this award, which is 7, which is a record, I would take off my glasses.
He deserved it. You know, it was due.
In February 1984, between Michael and Quincy, Thriller won a dozen Grammys.
Well, as we know, Thriller is a huge, huge success, the album. But the joy of doing something phenomenal, because everybody waiting to see the next big, Michael Jackson short. And I thought Thriller was the perfect vehicle.
We're going to come out. No one's going to like it. But 40 years from now,
My part of it. I don't know about you.
Then stop.
Cut. Who's your biggest inspiration? Who inspires you the most? Michael Jackson.
Michael saw that he could touch greatness with Off the Wall, knew he was still going against racist radio and people that wanted to put him in a box. But you have to be so in the rarefied air 0.0001% to even be able to project yourself to that.
That idea that I can take dance, music, and visuals and turn the world on its ear, that idea that he crystallized in Thriller, not going away, I don't think it's ever going to go away.
So rather it was human nature and his amazing voice, Beat It, and looking at the references that were there, because every time you saw a video, you got a new idea of who he was as an artist and what he was selling. Rather it was his hair and his clothing, his wardrobe, all of those things were informing the culture. He was establishing the standard. Thriller, man, there has never been anything like that.
Michael Jackson's Thriller.
What's the problem? Come on, I'll take you home.
They told him, don't you ever come around here. Don't wanna see your face, you better disappear. The fire's in their eyes and their words are really clear. So beat it, just beat it.